Hello, everyone, and welcome to SocialFlight Live. I'm Jeff Simon. We have a great show for you tonight. Kirby Chambliss is here. It is going to be such a great show. Let's turn on here the presentation. I just want to show you a couple things with updates about what's happening now here. And, we started SocialFlight Live specifically to support General Aviation during the crisis. And it's really been great. We've had such wonderful guests, and we're doing everything that we can to encourage people to get out there and fly, and especially to support their local FBOs, businesses, stay proficient, etc. And so the first thing we have done now that flying is coming back is to start this campaign that we call Aviation Social Distancing, one propeller apart. And so we're encouraging people to take this logo. Feel free to email us and we'll get your own logo on it. You can distribute it with your flying club or use it however it best suits you, just to encourage people to get out there and fly, but fly using safe social distancing practices. And I shouldn't have to say it, but of course, never stand so close to a propeller. That is not the point. It's an image about staying 6 feet apart. And so again, we're really excited because what's starting to happen around the country after this very difficult time is, of course, aviation is starting to open up. Flight schools are opening, all sorts of facilities are now opening, and then we're starting to see more air traffic and more wonderful things happening within general aviation. And I'll just have to say, kind of a proud dad moment here. My eldest son, Jake, is getting ready for his check ride. That was all put on hold at the beginning of the crisis, and so he'll be taking his check ride for his private on the 30th. We're all hoping for him and rooting for him with that, and that's all part of flight schools opening up. So this past weekend, the first thing that we did is we went and took a flight down to Katama Air Park, which is 1 Bravo 2 down in Martha's Vineyard, where it's part of Edgartown. And of course, Heidi and I, we put bikes into the plane and get out and bike around and look at that. It was so gorgeous, and it just reminds all of us how wonderful aviation is and how it can kind of open up the world for us as private pilots in a way that just isn't available to everybody else. And yet general aviation itself is available. And so the more that we can encourage people to learn how to fly or just take their first flight, the better. And when we landed here, it's really a classic airfield. It goes back to World War II. And it has 3 grass runways in kind of the old school military layout of a triangle, which is really cool. And even though you're dealing with a grass runway, you have such an incredibly long distance. It's very well manicured, a really easy place to fly into, and very classic. They even give rides in this gorgeous biplane that they had there, which is just constantly going up and around and spreading the word about general aviation. While we were there, we met this wonderful gentleman, Paul Santropietro, Captain Paul, who had this great, fantastic Explorer that he flies and is constantly giving people tailwheel training. And I loved this bumper sticker that he has on the plane. Help stamp out nose wheels, Captain Paul's Flight School and Tailwheel Academy. And I'll tell you, we talked with him at length. He is actually, let me go back to him here, he actually has 22,000 hours of flight time, mainly in training and small aircraft and banner towing, just about everything you can imagine, and splits his time between Florida and up in Martha's Vineyard. And so this was just a great opportunity to see more grassroots general aviation happening and spend some time with him. And as you can know, we all swap t-shirts and all these wonderful things. So a shout out there to Paul, and that was really wonderful. After that, we biked into town, and you can see the beauty of going down to Edgartown on Martha's Vineyard. And again, things starting to safely open up. Outdoor restaurants here in Massachusetts opening up. It's amazing how wonderful something like that actually feels after not having it for months. So it was a really, really great opportunity. And I would just like to, again, encourage all of you to tell us your stories, send us your stories and your pictures for Takeoffs for Takeout. We are here to support all of those FBOs, local airport restaurants, businesses, etc., everything around general aviation to keep it strong as we transition, hopefully, out of this crisis and back to a normal world where we are as stronger than we ever were before. And to that end, be sure to check out SocialFlight.com and the free SocialFlight mobile apps. There's where you find tens of thousands of aviation events and destinations. You can press one button on the map and get all of the $100 hamburger locations out there you can fly to. All of your adventures are there in one place. We just encourage you, of course, to continue doing it safely as we exit this crisis. So with that, I would like to switch to our top lead guest. I am so excited to have Kirby Chambliss here on the show tonight. You know, at only 13 years old, Kirby began flying, and by age 24, he was the youngest commercial pilot at Southwest Airlines. He made captain by age 28. And although he enjoyed flying commercial, it became a means to pay for his true love, which was aerobatics. Kirby continuously trained to perfect his aerobatic skills and routines and became a staple at air shows from around the country. And that's where he began to establish his fan base and earn the recognition for his skills, eventually getting acceptance onto the United States National Aerobatic Team. And to date, Kirby Chambliss has accumulated 13 medals in world competition. By the early 2000s, he was recognized as one of the top 15 aerobatic pilots in the world and was asked to compete in the very first Red Bull Air Race. He transferred his explosive, aggressive flying style to the racetrack, is now a two-time Red Bull Air Race world champion, and resides down at Flying Crown Ranch between Tucson and Phoenix with his wife and fellow pilot Kelly and their daughter Carly. With a hangar and runway in the backyard, Kirby's only steps away from hopping into one of his planes, which is a dream, I know, for so many of us. And so just before I bring him on, I would like to share with you one of my absolute favorite videos. So stay tuned for 1 second. You may have to adjust your volume for a very short video that gives you a great intro into what Kirby Chambliss is all about.
What in the...
It's good to be in Texas. Aircraft over Dallas. This is Texas State Police. Identify yourself. Sorry, gotta go. This guy's crazy. Fort Worth, he's coming your way. You ain't lost me yet, Hot Rod. You better check your watch.
Welcome home, Kirby.
Hey, it's great to be back in Texas.
You're still fast.
I think she'll go faster.
All right, boy, you can't do better than that for an introduction when it comes to excitement around having someone and a performer. And so here we go. Welcome, Kirby. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, Jeff, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on your show.
You are very, very welcome. And I first want to say I appreciate everything that you do. You're really big in supporting General Aviation. And so I know that not only being able to join us here tonight, but there's so much that you do to help support General Aviation and keep us going during this time that my hat's off to you for doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been, staying kind of busy doing some angel flights and stuff. It's, we're able to help some people out, and then also got to exercise the airplane anyway, so you might as well make it to where, it's kind of a win-win.
Exactly. Hey, look, we can't get past that video without you telling me the story that goes behind it. There's got to be something that goes behind there.
It was the backstory to that. We had a blast doing it. It was, really a lot of fun. But later on, like a month later, I heard that there was 831 911 calls down there, and I was like, oh my gosh, So I don't think that they were very good at getting the word out, So it was anything from spraying anthrax to, the airplanes crashed and many times because it kept going up and doing it. It seemed like forever. But right down there, down at the fairgrounds at the Ferris wheel, we did that shot many times, and you'd think after a while that people would say, well, maybe it didn't crash. It keeps going up and then back down. And then, we just had a blast doing it, though, but it was super fun.
So all of that, you worked that out in advance with the FAA, I assume?
Yes, of course. Yeah, it was all wavered and all done legitimately for sure, You always have to be that way because everybody's like, oh, it was a Red Bull plane. I'm like, oh, who flies that? Oh, it's Kirby. Everybody knows. So 100%, yeah, 100% legitimate. We were always that way. And but it was a lot of fun.
So tell me, how do you lay out the course, or you flew under a pretty low overpass as part of that, didn't you?
Yeah, we just decided that was kind of last minute. Like I said, the FAA was there and they're like, yeah, sure, go ahead. It really is not that difficult. I mean, it was funny, I tell you, we were doing a Red Bull air race down in Budapest, and early on we'd go under the chain bridge, which is super famous, and the water level changes, as you get rain and the river goes up, and so your clearance also changes. And it was funny because we've done it for years and years and years, and I think I counted out, I've been under that bridge about 400 times because you'd start under it, finish under it, and then every time you're going to practice, you're going under it. And about halfway through that, they made us sign a waiver. I'm like, I've been under the thing a couple hundred times now, and now you want me to sign a waiver, so go ahead. But it was, much easier. That bridge that I flew under in that advertisement was actually much easier than the chain bridge that sometimes we only had about 19 feet, and the airplane will take up 11 feet, believe it or not, from the bottom of the propeller or the landing gear, with it, especially going fast because the tail's kind of up in the air.
So you had less than 8 feet of clearance, less than 4 feet on top and bottom when you're going by.
Yeah. You had to remind yourself, because you're trying to set up, for the optimum line on that going through the gates, and you're like, oh yeah, think about the bridge too, because it was just kind of an afterthought when you're racing. You're like, oh yeah, there goes the bridge, and here we're onto the track.
Wow. I mean, and also I will say it's kind of hard, the idea, for at least from some of the folks that I've known at the FAA, that you just casually turn to them during this and say, hey, how about we also go under the bridge? They're like, yeah, sure.
Believe it or not, we've actually, we've always had a great working relationship with them. And I've gotten to do what a lot of people say is a lot of crazy stuff, but it's all really well thought out. We don't just do anything crazy, but it's all well thought out. I've landed on the Las Vegas Strip, and taken off from there, and flown through under cement ducts, bridges, all kinds of cool stuff that they allow us to do. So, and again, we don't just go out and do it. Site survey, everything's done, looked at it and ways out, and to ways to make it as safe as you could possibly do.
Right. Is there one in particular when it comes to like squeezing the airplane somewhere that it's not normally supposed to go that sticks out in your mind?
Well, let's see, when we were in Zhangjiajie, China, we were all flying through that whole Heaven's Gate, and that didn't have anything to do with the FAA. Obviously, they don't have jurisdiction in China. But, I didn't think that much of it, and I've been through there a few times, and a coach that I had forever, Sergey Boryak, he, after I'd already been through it several times, he came over and was talking that he wasn't going to do that. And he's like, it's crazy. And I was like, oh my God, if he's thinking it's crazy, maybe I should have put a little bit more thought into the whole thing, but it was fun, but you're going through, they say in some places it's only 90 feet wide, and you're going through there, and what you learn, initially we all use our peripheral vision a lot, and what you just learn to do is just kind of focus on where you want to be, which is out. So, go to the middle, and I want to be out of this thing, so But, when you're going into it, there's, once you decide to go through there, there's no getting out other than going out the backside of it. But that was probably the craziest, early on, but it was fun, and I sure enjoyed it.
Is there video out there of you
Oh,
doing
yeah,
it?
sure, yeah.
All right, we'll have to go check that out and direct
Okay.
people over to that if they want to see
Yeah.
that. And again, what is that called so people know can go look for that?
Heaven's Gate. And I mean, we've had some wingsuiters actually go through there now and do all kinds of cool stuff. So it's very famous. And it's, I know I'm going to, mispronounce it, but it's called Jingjiaji, China. So,
Wow.
and excuse my accent there for that.
So take us back in time a little bit. You were part of the first Red Bull air races when those things got started. How did that happen? And then what was your experience as they were figuring all of this out?
Well, I got a phone call from Peter Bessier, which I'd done a lot of World Grand Prix with him in China. He was a friend of mine, and he said, "Hey, we're going to do this thing," and he explained it all, and I was like, "Wow, that sounds really cool." But you're talking about doing it. I forget what. I just remember it was on it's going to start that on a week. It was on a weekend, and then I remember 2 days later, I was performing at Oshkosh, and so. Anyway, I said, Peter, it sounds great, but I don't want to be all jet lagged and everything. So I appreciate it, but no thanks. And then I got a call from Red Bull, and I wasn't sponsored by them or anything. I just got a call from them and said, "Hey, we really want you to come over and do this thing." And I was like, "Hey guys, thanks a lot. I appreciate it, but it's 2 days later. I'm going to fly to Oshkosh. I don't want to go through all that." And anyway, what I didn't know at the time is that they basically said you were 1 through 15 in the world aerobatic standings, or you weren't invited. Well, at the time, I was the only American in there. And so what I didn't know is that they wanted to bill it as an international event. And if I didn't go, it was going to be a European event. If I went, it's an international event. Had I known that, I probably would have let them call back a few more times because, every time they called me, they offered me more money. And pretty soon I was like, okay, I'll go. I guess I'll be jet lagged at Oshkosh, So, I mean, who am I trying to kid, Okay, I'm headed over.
Wow. So basically you owe Oshkosh how much money for getting
I still made it back and performed at Oshkosh for sure, but what I realized, it had so many of the things that I loved. I mean, I raced motocross as a kid. I always loved speed. I love flying. I love aerobatics, and it kind of had all those things into one. And so I got over there, and I was just like, wow. I mean, it was just a really good fit for me, and I enjoyed it so much. And then I helped them bring it to the U.S. We did a few in Europe, and the first one I helped them bring it to the U.S. and that's how my whole thing started with Red Bull. And that was I hate to date myself, like 16 years ago or something. So, but it's a really cool event, and it's a great event for aviation, and gets young people excited about aviation, and helps promote that. So I'm all about that.
And I've always thought, I mean, the proximity to cities, the proximity to so many people being able to see it, it's a one opportunity that you just don't have in so many other chances, where sure, people will be at some events and have a flyover, or at a game and have a military flyover, but to see this stuff up close from these cities and not have to actually go to specifically an air show, which already knocks out a whole bunch of people that may not originally find that attractive, just exposes it to a huge number of people. I mean, I really think it's fantastic. Now, in the very beginning, how much had they had, like, what was kind of figured out already versus what did they learn over time along the way? I mean, did they, at that time they were calling you, were they like locked and done, like, oh, we already know what a course layout is, we already know how these pylons are going to work? What was the story?
No, they were just putting it together. And I mean, back then, I think, one of the reasons that they wanted you to be so experienced is that, quite frankly, a lot of it stuff was crazy. I mean, I remember we had what we called the crash and go, where you would pull up, and do 2 or 4 or something like, so you stop 90 degrees, and you remember you're going to climb at least 1,500 feet. And then only about maybe 700 feet from there, you had to hit the landing gear on this bull. Otherwise, you lost 2 seconds or 5 seconds, whatever it was. And so, you've got the airplane coming down at a huge rate of descent. Imagine, you're going to do that. And so you throw it on its side, you're slipping it like crazy. And, so there was a lot of things that really weren't thought out back then, and they would just, I mean, I tell people too, I did the test flying on the edge from the first one in '93 all the way up till 2005. And So I was pretty familiar with what that airplane was capable of. At least that's what I thought. And if you were to tell me that the airplanes were capable of making it turns and corners and stuff like we are now, I would have told you you're crazy, because you know, they basically turn inside of each other. But the whole thing evolved, and you know, it's gotten to where, of course, it's much safer too. You know, by all that, the gates have been raised. You know, they got rid of the quattro, and which is something that I really enjoy doing. But you know, quite frankly, I mean, it exposes you. You know, your what we call spades or shovels on the bottom of the airplane. You're exposed to those, you know, with those 4 gates as you're coming through under high G, and so, you know, things like that. They try to make it, you know, more entertaining, but also safer too for the pilots.
Towards the end, did they still have that thing where you've got to touch your landing gear down?
No, they got rid of that, you know. So it was always during practice. I mean, there was definitely one prop that went away because of that. You know, not on mine, but you know, yeah. So it was always interesting, and it was for sure fun to watch because you never quite knew exactly what was going to happen.
You didn't know you're gonna have a spot landing competition right in the middle of an air race?
Yeah, you know, and that's the thing. You're doing it, you know, imagine that from 1,500 feet down, 700 feet down the way, and you've got to literally put your gear on that. And then, oh, that's not bad enough. You know, let's turn it, you know, 180 degrees, you know, at stalling speed now, because you just come off the runway, the fastest guy to do that. And we used to do a thing where you'd loop back through with it. That went away too. So you'd go through the gate, and when you felt like, okay, I can make it from here, max G, everything, then I'm going to turn this thing around and I'm going to come right back through here. So you want to go as soon as you can, because every fraction of a second that you're going that way is going to take even longer to come back. And so you would just go, okay, bam, you know, I can make it now. And it was like, okay, that's not dangerous enough, because you had this huge, you know, vector going towards the ground. You had to stop the vector and then get through the gate. But there we go. Instead of making it a horizontal gate, back then we had the knife edge gate. So after you've made this, let's just take all the lift out of the wing and turn it sideways. Like, oh my God. But, you know, we did it, and, you know, it all worked out, but it was for sure exciting. You know, some of them I'd watch some other people sometimes and go, ooh, okay, you got through that. So, yeah, but it evolved, and, you know, it's faster, the times are closer, and, you know, and also, a lot of the guys, you know, were basically doing it, you know, they started doing it when so everybody got pretty good at it.
Wow. And now, would your
94
whole
range total or something like that, so.
would your whole team travel with you for all this?
Yes, yeah, and the teams got bigger, you know, we added tacticians, you know, to help you with optimize the line. We had simulators, and, you know, it's just like anything. I mean, I think you start out with a rule book that's kind of like this, and then pretty soon it's like this, you know. So
Right.
It's just like Formula One or NASCAR or anything else, you know, you keep adding rules, and, you know, some of that's good, some of it's bad.
So start with the basics. The plane, would it get shipped over?
Yeah, so everybody always asks, how do you get the airplane there? Well, my airshow plane looks just like my race plane. So they were always like, this plane's going to be, you know, 2 days from now, it's going to be, you know, wherever in Budapest, and it's a different plane. And it was also modified different. It's still an Edge, but they call it a version 3. But we've got these big suitcases, and the wing would come off. The guys that put the wing in a big suitcase, that's what it looks like, but they call it the wing box, and then a tail box. The tail would come off. Then they would bubble wrap the fuselages. They'd put them both on, 2 of them on what I call as a cookie sheet. You know, it's a big chunk of aluminum. They would get strapped down. Then they would strap all the wing boxes down, tail boxes down. They would go in a front end 747, you know, and then zoom, they're gone. So.
Oh, so air transport. You didn't even stick it into a shipping container or anything.
Well, sometimes if we had enough time between the race, because I think it's about probably 1/5 of what, you know, air freight is, to send them sea freight. So if you had time, you know, they tried to do it that way, but yeah, a lot of times, I mean, we had 747s running this stuff around. So, you know, it's a pretty expensive deal, you know, for sure.
I always like the idea of an airplane coming out of an airplane there. I do remember the year at Oshkosh that that they came in with this what was it, the Airbus 380 came in, and the pilot pulled out his little creakery.
Yeah. I want to work on a project that I'm in the airplane that we can shove it out of the back of a 130, or if we could talk the military out of, you know, loaning us a C5, that'd be really cool.
If anyone's going to do a Kirby, it's going to be you.
That'd be fun, huh? Yeah.
I have little doubt about that. No question that's going to happen. So now tell me a little, you mentioned a little bit earlier about simulators and things like that. And you've got a flight engineer, an aerodynamicist. I mean, your team covers the gambit of skills. And tell me about simulating this so that you can give yourself the best chances of winning.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, early on, it was seat of the pants flying, and you just kind of figured, okay, I think this is going to be the fastest. Well, as it evolved, we would get guys who were really good with the computer stuff, and, one guy would start out, and pretty soon we all had a tactician, but, we don't go straight through the gate. I mean, people like, because that would be easy. What you're trying to do is go through there at the optimum angle to whichever direction you need to go. And so I would get, when we first started, my Paul Iskell was my tactician, and he would give me a simulation that I could just look at on an iPad or a computer. But it would help right off the bat, because it'd say plus 20 or minus 20 or whatever you need in order to go through that gate. But at least that's what the computer said is going to be the fastest line. And when you're only getting 12 or maybe 13 minutes on the track to practice, you don't need to be going out there and going, okay, I need to go from this gate. You need to already know what is more than likely the fast line so that you can start practicing that. And of course the wind and, even the tide in and out, because it's going to change things. It's kind of a living, breathing track. Imagine it's on a barge, I mean, it's just tied down, right? I mean, they've got anchors and all that, but as the tide goes in, out, the wind's blowing it. I mean, imagine telling, the Formula One driver, hey, while you're, in there for the race, we're going to go out and change your, track 20 degrees this way, 20 degrees that way. I mean, it happens. And so at that point, then you just got to do whatever you can do in order to get through there. But yeah, it changes. But with a tactician, he would give us, what was the computer would say the best line, and you'd start off with that. Maybe you'd have to change it, but for the most part, it was, pretty accurate.
You ever shred a gate?
Oh yeah, I always say if you don't hit gates when you're practicing, you're not trying hard enough. You go, how do you go the fastest? You see, okay, you go too fast, and you go, okay, I got to slow back from there, or I'm not going to quite be able to make that. But I think early on those gates, a full gate was about $10,000. So as you slice the pieces of it, because they're all together, you go, there goes about $1,000 there. I think one race we took out 63 gates. It was pretty ugly, so it was really expensive.
Gate was $10,000 for a gate, huh?
Yeah, it's for the whole thing, basically. Yeah. So again, I think there's 5 or 6 sections that would zip in. So you're just taking a little chunk of it, as they say, chunk of money here, chunk of money there. Fortunately, we didn't have to pay for them. Red Bulls.
I didn't realize that they're zipped together. So basically, they expect to shred one, and then they put in whatever section it is.
Yeah, exactly. And if you'll see air gators, I mean, they had to do it towards the end. I mean, they only had 3 minutes, and they could do it faster than that. And that's to get there, to take that bad section out, zip another section in. It was amazing to watch them, and then inflate the gate and get out of there, because they've got 3 minutes. I mean, it's live on television, so you don't have a lot of time to just go, whenever you guys get done, we'll start racing again. No, it was just like straight up, boom, and they were good at it. It was really amazing, and it's a difficult job too. They were amazing.
I can imagine 3 minutes to get out there and zip it and repair, take out and put in a new part of the gate and get out of there.
Yeah,
that's impressive, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, it was a team of probably, they're all positioned all around the track too, because they want to be, you don't know which gate somebody's going to take out, and they would have to literally, that team usually I'm just going to guess, I think 6 or 7 or 8 on each one that's ready to go after that pylon or whatever one that went down, so they, like I said, zip out there. They literally got 3 minutes, and it needs to be done and back up in 3 minutes.
And they also, basically on race boats most of the time?
Yeah, almost jet skis. They got everything, but they had a pretty quick boat, and they just knew how to do it. I mean, because also we're holding, like, I'm getting ready to run against a guy, and he takes down 2 gates. Well, I can't sit out there and hold forever either. We're not carrying, we're trying to always carry the minimum fuel we'd have to take off with 50 liters, and they had somebody checking that with the weights and everything else. But 50 liters was at 12 gallons. If you're really hammering on it, my airplane will burn 32 gallons basically an hour. So you start doing the math, it goes away pretty quick. So when somebody would hit a gate, you'd immediately go, and then try to, reduce the power as much as you could, because now you're going to be sitting there for 3 minutes before it's your shot at it.
Wow. So tell me about how that affects, the racing, because one of the things that's obviously important is that even the small weight difference it might make of having a few gallons different there for what your race is going to be. You said you're only carrying 12 gallons.
Right.
And so you easily, if something comes up that's unexpected and all of a sudden you're 3-4 gallons off than what you expected, or maybe less than that, how does that affect your racing?
Well,
Or
the
how
good thing is, I mean, first of all, when people are like, oh my God, only 12 gallons, you don't even have, well, first, all the airplanes that we have really nice is it's a sighting device. And so you can see the fuel. And then you have a header, and you can even see it go down into the header. It goes down in that header, it only holds about 3/4 of a gallon. You better be on the ground pretty quick. But you can see your fuel. And of course, you want to run as light as you can. So, if I didn't think the guy's going to knock something down, then I'm in the throttle the whole way. I'm trying to get lighter. You're not allowed to dump fuel, but I can burn it. So, it's going to make a difference. And, when you're going to basically, I've been knocked out for, 300ths of a second or thousandths of a second. Basically, less than a spinner length that you get kicked out for. So you want to be as light as you can. We would even close our little vents, suck those in right as you go into the track and, burn up inside there just to save that little bit of drag, because you always felt like that could make the difference. So you try to be as light as you can, but as soon as somebody hits a gate, then you're pulling the throttle back and just trying to hang in low power as you can, because now I'm gonna have to hold 3 minutes and I still got to get back, but we'd always land. You could see your fuel, and we were pretty good at managing that, again and again and again. So that was never really a big issue.
How standardized are the aircraft themselves from one team to another?
So engines were pretty much standardized, but they're supposed to be within, I think it was 2% or 3%. Let's see, 3%, 2 or 3%. But anyway, it was basically within about 6 horsepower. So that's what they were, they were shooting for. Were they always that way? Maybe, maybe not. And you're always, when you're racing, you're like, that guy's got more than, and so it was always one of those. The airplanes, they were standardized, but you were allowed to, change the winglets and a bunch of different things you could change on them. And then we were still using 2 different kinds. Basically, out of the 14 in the master class, which is what I raced in, 13 of them were Edge 540s. Most of them were either what we call version 3 or V2 that was modified to basically a version 3. And then we had one MXS, one holdout guy. And, they could modify that however they needed to. But for the most part, they're pretty close.
And then mostly your team is working on getting it dialed in for exactly what matters for you with, the controls and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And then always trying to, there's certain things that you could do to the motor, and guys, when we weren't allowed to inject water into the induction system or anything, but, you could cool cylinders with it. And then you're like, we found that it didn't make that much difference. So it just, now you're carrying more weight, and, everybody had what they thought was the magic, ticket in order to win. And, if somebody was really doing well, it was kind of looking around, trying to figure out exactly what they're doing, but normally It was just, flying it good too, and what makes a difference also.
So last question about the race stuff. What was your best memory or your favorite location?
Well, everybody always asks me, and I was in St. Petersburg, Russia, and it was because we were ahead in the series, and we got over there, and then I don't know, it was politics or whatever, but the airplanes were not allowed to come in. So I spent a whole week there going through the museums. Every day they're like, okay, they're bringing the planes in, it's not going to happen. And then, so they finally ended up canceling. Everybody's like, well, that was your favorite race? I'm like, yeah, because we were already leading the series. So it was just another chance to, snatch defeat from the jaws of victory already. So no, but it was a beautiful city. And I, like I said, enjoyed going through the museums and having a blast. But as far as racing, probably Budapest, because, it's such a beautiful city, and I always enjoyed it there, and we always did really well there. So I think probably Budapest.
Wow. So let's go back in time a little bit. What is it that got you from starting in the airline world and making that real switch across to performing?
The way that I got started in aerobatics, I was 21 a few years ago. I was flying a business jet for La Quinta Motor Inns, and our chief pilot said, hey, if the jet ever ends up upside down, we want you to be able to turn it right side up without killing everyone. And at 21, I thought, that makes sense to me. And we went out and in an aerobatic airplane with an aerobatic instructor, turned the airplane upside down. I was like, wow, this is the coolest thing ever. And it literally changed my life. Because I love flying, but all of a sudden now flying became three-dimensional, and it was, and then it was just like everything other than flying aerobatics was just a big inconvenience for me. That's all I wanted to do, everything about it, I didn't want to hear about it. This is, and so, and that's how, I ended up in the U.S. aerobatic team and all the different things and display flying. It's just, I just loved it, and I mean, I've always loved aviation, and it's been so good to me, from a career and enjoying it and doing all the cool things that I've been to do and traveling the world. That anytime that I get a chance to turn young people onto it, or somebody that's, just starting out, like I said, it's been so good to me, and I'm just happy to, have a chance to help promote it, and doing what you do, the same thing, it's passion, and we love flying. My daughter's flying a little bit now, and I know you said your son, he's getting ready to take his check ride, and, as a parent, you feel like you're so proud of him, but, aviation's a cool thing.
Yeah, definitely. And as you mentioned, as cool as it is to be in the flight deck of, let's say, a Learjet or something like that, it's not necessarily the room for a lot of creativity there. Creativity is probably not encouraged in the flight deck. And definitely not at Southwest, where it used to be, probably, or other airlines.
100%. People are always like, "Do you ever roll that 737?" I said, I thought about it a couple of times, and I said, and then I think about the 5th and 20th, and I wouldn't do it. They're like, "What's the 5th and 20th?" I'm like, payday, because you get a chance to do that one time and it'll all be over. But, people don't want it to be exciting. It's an airliner, right?
Right.
I mean, paying to be very boring. That's what you want. It's transportation, point A to point B. So, for me, I mean, I love the excitement and everything. And, that's, my transition to aerobatics. I'm sure, that had something to do with it.
It's funny because you think back on history of like the debut of the 707 and jet age, and they always talk about that from Boeing with that pad, that when he rolled that 707 in front of everybody, and it's this dramatic thing, and that was probably the last time anything like that ever happened.
Yeah. Well, they say, I mean, this is just what I've heard, that initially they fired him, for doing that. And then they got so many orders, they were like, well, actually, you're forgiven. Come back. Come on. That's the story. I mean, again, I don't know if that's true, but that's what I've always heard. But yeah, it was cool. You can roll anything as long as you do it right.
Yeah, that's definitely impressive, right? Because properly, it's a 1G maneuver, and then you're all set.
Yeah.
So what brought you through that step then to the next level of actually starting to compete after you dipped your toes in the water of aerobatics?
Well, I was really lucky because I met this guy, Sam Burgess, and he talked about competition, and I was like, because I finally had enough money, I'd gotten on with Southwest, and I was able to purchase a little pits, and and so started flying. He's like, what you should do is get into competition aerobatics, IAC, and they're out there, and it's because you have so many people, with a lot of knowledge that are happy to share it with you, and so it keeps you kind of out of trouble as you're learning too. And so he put me into that, and so you start, and you also have a reason to practice and the discipline of it all, and trying to make everything perfect. And when you're doing that, you're getting better and better and better. And so I enjoyed competition too. Like I said, I raced motocross as a kid. I'm a competitive person, and so the competition aerobatic side, I thought that was pretty neat. And then once I got into it, it was just like I'm an all or nothing type person. I'm like, all in, here we go, and that was my life, and that's all I wanted to do, was fly aerobatics and compete, and then that moved me into display flying, and and then into the Red Bull Air Race and all that.
Now, in aerobatic competitions and performing, there's obviously a real wide range of how this actually goes, where people tend to specialize, where they find their niche, from absolute precision and going for precision above all else, to absolute creativity and going for creativity. And it's not that any of these are exclusive, but everyone finds themselves, it seems, somewhere on that spectrum. How would you characterize your flying and where you like to be in that world?
I mean, people will say your style of flying. I mean, I try not to put too much thought in that, but people would say is explosive, and type that, super aggressive. And I guess, I don't know where that came from, but yeah, I mean, but not only aggressive. I mean, for me, I always wanted to, I didn't like, if I'm doing a gyroscopic maneuver, we're making the airplane flip end over end over end. I don't want it to just stop in some attitude, you know. So it looks like a fish out of water hopping around. Everything that I do, I want it to seem like it's deliberate. He has, you know, so much control over the airplane that he knows like the back of his hand. And I like to feel that way too, because it makes you feel confident. And so I would always try to, no matter tumbling end over end over end, I would always finish on some identifiable axis, and normally like a 45 down, horizontal, straight down, something in that airplane. So everything that I do is super deliberate. And so I try to be not only aggressive, but very precise. And, you know, a lot of that comes from my competition aerobatics. I mean, I want it to look like everything that I did is deliberate. And that's what helps you win too. You've got to impress 10 judges, and the way that you're going to do it is, you know, that airplane's on a rail, you know, and that's right. Competition aerobatics. And also when you're trying to do it, it's also, it gives you, you know, you're flying for them, but you're really flying for yourself too. And the fact that, you know, you do a double outside snap and you just went bam, you know, and you look out of your sighting device and you're right on, you know, and you're always looking for that perfect flight.
Wow. Wow. So let's talk about airplanes for a minute here, and I'm going to go and open up our back to some of our slides that we had here, because your stable's got more than a few airplanes in it, and it all starts with this one, this shot that we've got right up here that has you with the M600 and also your Team Chambliss Edge aircraft there.
Yeah, so, you know, Jason's flying the M600 there, you know, that photo thing, and I'm in the Edge, and I mean, what an airplane. So, you know, we've always had to have a support airplane. What it does is carries not only, you know, our team, but it also carries the parts and supports the airshow airplane, because the airshow airplane can't carry anything. I mean, you got, you know, I mean, enough room for, you know, a couple of shirts and a pair of underwear, and that would be about it in that thing. So we have to carry all the parts, because we're at an airshow, you break down, you don't want to just say, oh, we can't perform today. We carry all the parts in order to be able to fix it overnight, or, you know, within hours, in order to be able to perform. And so we've had this support airplane. We had a Meridian that I loved for 8 years, I guess. And then, yeah, Piper helped us step up to the M600. It looks like a Meridian, but it's really not. It's an amazing airplane.
Right.
Just it's got the Garmin G3000 suite in it, you know, and it's all touch screen. And it's probably, even with all the 737s that I've flown, it's probably the most sophisticated airplane that I've ever flown. You know, it's it pretty much, well, and the new ones land themselves. You know, you have a problem, push a button, and it'll actually figure it all out and go land itself and shut the motor down and show you a picture on how to take your seatbelt off and open the door. You know, so it's really sophisticated, and it's a absolute joy to fly, and it's so capable. So yeah, it's really a nice airplane, and that's what we've been doing the angel flights in, is the M600. And you know, we're just now starting to carry people again because of the virus, but we've been taking stuff up to the different reservations, and you know, wherever they need us to move stuff to, we've been doing that, and it's been great.
Yeah, and by the way, for anyone watching, you can just resize your frame of being able to see more of the picture or more of the video from Kirby on there. Just a quick note as you do that, and we show some of these pictures. And so that's the M600 and the other one. Now, these next two are definitely close to my heart because of the work that you've put into them. And as you know, of course, we've got a video series on YouTube. Just search SocialFlight, you get to see our Titan T51D Mustang, which is this guy right behind me here, going together with the boys, our project. So I love it when people roll up their sleeves and work on planes. And so the next one that we've got here is your, well, why don't you take us through it?
Yeah, so that's a 3/4 scale replica of the Fieseler Storch, you know, which is what, you know, Hitler sent up to rescue Mussolini. It's a STOL airplane, and this is a replica. I've never actually flown the real one. They tell me that this one performs better. It's got a Rotec 912 ULS 100 horsepower in it. It's just a great airplane. The stalling speed is 22 miles an hour, and it's a really rough and rugged and even a crude airplane, which they tell me the real ones were also. But it's super maneuverable. And, you know, my daughter, when she was growing up, I mean, she's been in it from, you know, I mean, probably from she was 6 months old or whatever, or a year or whatever, but she had, her favorite toy was a duck, you know, a duck. And so she loved ducks, and we could scare the ducks up with the airplane. And it's the only airplane I've ever flown that you can actually stay behind them and make the ducks just crazy. You know, usually you just go flying right on by. So we'd always have blast, and I call it a dirt bike with wings. We'd land out in the desert everywhere, and we'd go hiking and just have a ball. It's just if I'm going to go out and fly something just for fun, I'm always going to jump in the storage because it's great.
That is so cool. And you've done quite a bit of work on that, right?
Yeah, when we got it, it was really crude, and I came from Novi Sad, Serbia, and needed a couple things here and there, but it's like I said, it's just a blast. We all really enjoy flying.
That's awesome. And then the next one that we've got here, a little more personal.
Yeah. So, when you're a teenager, you know everything, right? So I was 13 years old, and my dad, he built jigs and stuff for a living. He was a machinist, and he came home with this U-Haul trailer full of sheet metal and said, "This is an airplane." And I thought, "God, somebody really took advantage of him." It's at least just like a U-Haul trailer full of a bunch of metal. But anyway, a year later, he flew it. But I bucked all the rivets in the fuselage, and then I flew it. I think right after I got my private, I bought it from him for next to nothing back then. But anyway, it was I put it, my first 600 hours was in that airplane. I flew it a lot, and then I sold it, and then 20 some odd years later, I found it and I purchased it back. It had been wrecked a couple times, so my guys have been working on it to put it back together, and now it's painted. You see the picture on the left side of the screen. That's nowadays, and we're just getting ready to fly it again. On the right side is probably 20, 25 years ago.
It's got to be such a time capsule to think about looking at each of those rivets and knowing that your younger self did that with your dad, bucking all those rivets. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, it was really good for me. My dad passed away probably 35 years ago, so it was cool to find it again, and to go out and take my daughter, who's never met, obviously she's 15 years old, her granddad, but to be able to share that experience with her too is pretty special.
Wow, absolutely. That is that's really something. So tell us what's going on lately now? What's the latest of what's happening in your world?
Well, so right now, basically unemployed until September, and I'm just kidding, but with the air shows, my first air show, I think it'll be the Great Pacific Air Show out at Huntington Beach, and that'll be in September, and we get rolling again. That's if everything goes good, with the virus and all that, then hopefully that'll be our first show. We've just had so many shows canceled. I was real heavy into military shows, and it seems like when the first one tanked, they just kind of all went away after that. So, been keeping myself busy with the family and enjoying a little bit of extra time at home. I think they're like, "God, why is he here so much? He's never here." Get out of here, we're tired of you, But no, that's been a blessing too. So, and like I said, in order to be able to do some of the angel flights and give some stuff back. So it's been great. I think you can't dwell on all of it. You just got to try to do the best that you can and enjoy your life, even though this is difficult for everyone. It's still. Life goes on, and we try to, enjoy ourselves as much as we can. And, while we're being safe and social distancing, for me, it's been good as far as social distancing, because I live out in the middle of nowhere, and unless we're going to get it from a coyote, we're probably not going to get it, So, but I live on an airport, out, and I'm able to go fly and, ride motorcycles and, go out for a walk or jog or whatever we want to do. And so our social distancing is pretty easy.
My fiance Heidi likes to call it the gift of COVID. No matter how bad things get, there's always a few things that show up that you wouldn't have had otherwise. Yeah. And in our case, the lockdown here, it was like turned into two boys and saying, I know exactly what you're going to be doing during this time.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
There's always some silver lining somewhere about it.
Well, you look at life that way, right? We're all here for a certain amount of time, and enjoy it as much as you can.
Right, absolutely. Now we have a little special adventure for everybody tonight, and that is we were talking, and you've got some pretty cool stuff going on with your daughter Carly, right?
Yeah, so Carly, she can fly an airplane pretty decent these days, but she really flies her body well. So she's basically it's indoor skydiving, and she's really, really good at it. So she's just took second at the U.S. Nationals. I said that was December of last year, made the U.S. team. So she's going to have that experience and go to Belgium to compete on a world level. So it's really cool. I'm a buffoon skydiver. I just do it for fun, but I get in the tunnel with her, and I can basically fly, heads down, what you're going to see her doing, and we'll split 30 minutes, and she'll get 28, I get 2 minutes, and the 2 minutes I'm in there, she's jumping in there with me. And the rule is that if we run into each other, it was your fault because you're so much better than I am. So but yeah, it's cool. I mean, she's so passionate about it, and I love that about it. You have something in your life that you're passionate about, and so yeah, I think you'll have a clip, and I hope everybody knows that.
So for everybody online, when we first spoke about this, I had never heard about it. I years ago, for a birthday present, I went and tried one of these things where I went in and flopped around like a wet noodle and inside one of these things, and had very little control over anything. And in general, I've been following the philosophy of not jumping yet out of a perfectly good airplane. And so I have no problem doing it, but I am certainly not someone who knows a lot about the world of indoor or outdoor in skydiving. And it all changed when I saw this quick video that Kirby sent me. And so I'd like to share this with you. I'm going to shut off the webcams for a second so you can see it on full size. And then when we come back, Carly's going to join us, and we'll get to hear, because this is, you just got to see it. All right, well, that is just amazing. So let's bring on back. Here we go. How are you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
Hi, Carly. Welcome to SocialFlight Live.
Thank you for having me.
You are very, very welcome. That is unbelievable. I haven't seen anything like that before, and I can't imagine doing that kind of stuff on the ground, let alone while a fan's kicking me all over the place.
It would be a little harder on the ground.
So fill me in a little bit on your background. Now, do you have a gymnast background, a dance background? How did you come about this?
Both. I spent 8 years doing gymnastics and 3 competing, and I did 2 years of ballet.
Wow. And you are how many years old?
I'm 15.
So 15 years old, you're going to be competing at a world-class level and going overseas. You're doing a sport that is obviously pretty far out there. So what brought you over the line? What got you into this, competing this way?
My dad is a skydiver and has been for a while now. So he took me over to Skyventure for the first time, which is in Arizona, my home tunnel, where I train all the time pretty much. When I was, I think, 4, and I did my first flight, it was, I hated it. I really hated it, yeah. I hated it the first time, and I got back in when I was 8 years old, and I loved it, and I really started to engage in the sport when I was probably 12. And I started competing, and it was amazing, the community and the sport, for the most part.
And was the competition something that the local version that you went to, the place that had the, first of all, educate me. What are they called, the location that you go to?
It's called Skydive Arizona. but
Okay.
the tunnel is called Skyventure.
Okay.
And
And so but you refer to them as tunnels, right?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
And so the tunnel that you actually became your home tunnel where you trained at, were they already really familiar with competition use of it?
A little. And then I started competing, and a lot of their instructors already competed, so they did know a lot about it. But it was really, nobody's competed at a world level in indoor skydiving for Arizona.
Wow. And so you started your competing there, and then how did you progress? How did you get, whether it's a coach, or how did you get through the different levels to even get remotely near where you are right now?
I've had a lot of coaches from all different kinds of countries. I just had a coach from Russia come out, but the indoor skydiving is a really popular in Europe. So a lot of coaches from Europe come to coach me just to progress and
Wow.
yeah.
That's impressive. And how much of it is existing moves and techniques that others are teaching you, and how much is creative things that you're doing yourself?
I create a lot of my own moves just to have a unique style and try to impress the judges.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I have a lot of moves from gymnastics that help me, just to a lot of the flexibility things.
Yep. And how are these things judged?
There's 5 rounds. There used to be 7, but there's 5 now, and there's 2 rounds that are compulsory. So things that I'm required to do 6 moves in 2 routines. So each routine has 3 moves, and then I choreograph my other 3 remaining routines to music, and I listen to music in my helmet, and the judges can hear the music, and it becomes almost like ice skating.
Mm-hmm. So that's synchronized, what the people outside see and what you hear, because obviously it's noisy in there, and you've got a helmet on.
Yes, it
That's
is.
all. Okay. Very, very impressive. And where have you competed outside the United States so far?
This will be my first year competing outside the United States. I qualified for the U.S. Nationals in January, and the Worlds were supposed to happen in April, but because of COVID, they were postponed to October 20th through 25th in Belgium.
Okay. In Belgium. That is so exciting. That's pretty wild. And I know your dad was telling me about there's apparently some pretty dramatic tunnels around Europe and the Middle East.
There is, yes. Beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, the one in Abu Dhabi, you know, is literally, it's 32 feet wide and it goes up 165 feet. So she can go screaming up 165 feet, come screaming down, you know, and just like at the last second, you know, but there's, you know, 150, 160 mile an hour wind in there when she's flying in that. So it just throws you up. And if you or I were going there, you know, not knowing what you're doing, it'd slam you against the wall so fast. It'd make your head spin.
Oh, I'd get slammed against the wall probably when someone opened the door just to step out. Yeah. That is so cool. Now, have you done or do you still do any actual out of an airplane diving?
I'm not allowed to till I'm 18 for legal reasons, but I am waiting. I am counting down the days and the months.
Keep counting. I think that we're gonna keep you in the tunnel there and keep you safe for a while, I guess.
I have 3 more years. 3 more.
Yeah. So that is really impressive, and I really appreciate you giving us this perspective on everything that you're doing. Let me tell you, now, do you travel with your dad when he does his side of performing?
I do travel. I used to a lot, but school got very time consuming, so it was harder for me to travel with my dad all the time. But when I was younger, I went everywhere with him.
Wow. What's it like being the daughter of an airshow performer at the top echelon level?
It's really great because when I was little, I got a
You want me
really
to ask him to leave the room for this?
Yeah.
right. No. I promise nothing bad. But when I was younger, when I went everywhere, I got a really cool perspective as a young person to see all the different cultures everywhere I went, and it really helped me like learn different things, and it was great. It was great.
That's fantastic. Well, anything that you can do to help introduce people to aviation and spread the word is good all the way around. It's the same thing that that I teach my guys as well. And I mean, congratulations to everything that you do, your accomplishments. Hope to see you. I'll be watching you in Belgium compete. Hopefully that'll be televised. And I really appreciate both of you for taking the time to join us tonight. It's really fantastic what you're both doing.
Of course. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, Jeff, thank you. Really enjoyed it, and to all the viewers out there, I mean, it's great what you're doing, and, especially during this time, to get some things out there and allow people to still see some flying. And so it's been we really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Oh, you are so welcome. Hope we have you back soon. Kirby and Carly Chambliss, and a shout out to Kelly as well, because we know that she runs everything behind the show and behind the scenes for both of you. And so thank you both so much for joining us here on SocialFlight Live. And again, to everyone who's watching, be sure to do this. We'll have a recording out there on SocialFlight's YouTube channel. And more than anything, sign in, get socialflight.com and SocialFlight mobile apps. It's the best way for our community to stay together. Everything is completely free. We try to give away things as often as we can from our sponsors, and anything else that we can do to support General Aviation. We want to hear from you in what we can do to help. Until next time, I'm Jeff Simon for SocialFlight. Blue skies.